Good afternoon. We are back in session, ready for here are our land use items. Amanda, can you call the roll for us, please?
Commissioner Thayer.
Here.
Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Schroeder.
Here. We're going to do a couple things out of order here, and that's why Commissioner Richardson is not here. He has recused himself from the land use hearing regarding Phantom Creek preliminary plat. And since we have a expected quick hearing today on this one, we're going to reverse the order of what is on the agenda and hear the Phantom Creek first. Do not expect that to take very long. And then we'll call Commissioner Richardson back in and finish up with our Laura preliminary plat. So with that said, I'd take a motion to reopen the public hearing on Phantom Creek preliminary plat.
I move that we open the hearing on Phantom Creek preliminary plat P-2023-00040.
I will second that. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're in public hearing. Danny, do you have any updates for us?
Yes, I do have an update from the applicant. He would like to request a continuance with the date and time certain of August 14th, 2024 at 1 p.m. back here at the BOCC meeting room, 215 Comanche Street in Kiowa. And that again is for the preliminary plat for Phantom Creek P-2023-00040.
Did you say August 14th?
August 14th.
Okay. There's something that we've been discussing internally is the amount of length of time for a continuance. We haven't said anything in stone yet, but this is kind of the scenario we want to avoid of continuing items many months in the future from when it was first posted. So I think that's something that we need to work out with staff as what we can do moving forward with several continuances, particularly the issue of posting when that meeting becomes an issue. So we can work on that, but just so it's on everybody's plate there that is something that we need to discuss.
I agree with what you said there. They need to have an updated sign up there for sure, because the way it is right now, that misleads the public when that's not fair. But because we haven't formalized the rule on that yet, I'll make a motion to, well, I've already made the motion.
No,
to open.
You've opened.
Yes. Make a motion to continue the Phantom Creek preliminary plat till August 14th, 2024, P-2023-00040.
I will second that. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that Phantom Creek preliminary plat is continued till time date certain, August 14th, 2024, 1 p.m. in this room here. And so with that, I'll take a motion to close public hearing.
I move that we close public hearing on Phantom Creek preliminary plat.
Second that, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're out of public hearing for Phantom Creek. It'll take just a minute to get Commissioner Richardson in the room, and we'll move on with the Elora preliminary plat.
Okay, I guess we did not recess, but would you mind calling the roll again, just so I'm truly present?
Commissioner Richardson,
I am here.
Commissioner Thayer. I'm still here. Commissioner Schroeder,
Here.
We still have a quorum, but now we don't have a chance of a split vote, so. I guess with that, I would move on to our second land use item of the day, and that's to hear the preliminary plat for Elora, case number BP 2023-2003. I'd accept a motion to open.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to open public hearing on Phantom Creek preliminary plat, case P-2023-00040.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to open public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 I guess I will turn this over to Mark at first, but I know we have a remote presenter today, so thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, Mark Denrader, Director of Community and Economic Development. Yes, for this case, we have our contract planner, Sandra Hoffman, presenting remotely. And Sandra, I'll hand it to you.
All right. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I am Sandra Hoffman. I'm a Senior Associate with Logan Simpson. I'm the Contract Site Plan Reviewer for Elbert County's Community and Economic Development Department. Today, I will be presenting on the Elora, which was formerly known as Sterling Crossing, preliminary plat, which is the case number PP-2023-2003. See if this will. Okay, now it won't change slides. Let me see if I can get it to change slides here. Oops, back up a second. Sorry about that. Now I wanted to jump ahead too fast. Sorry about that.
No problem.
This should be slide number 2. It should be a screen with the little blue square with the word site in it. The site is located within unincorporated Elbert County, generally located east of Delbert Road, which is County Road 1, and south of East County Line Road, which is south of County Road 194. The Elora preliminary plat will subdivide about 196.8 acres into a minimum conservation community with 50% open space. It includes 308 single-family detached lots and a 4.1-acre commercial site within the plan unit development zoning. So the image on the screen shows you the Elora project in sort of bright yellow, and it's obviously within Elbert County. Adjacent to it, to the north, is Arapahoe County. To the west is Douglas County. And then the city of Aurora is towards the northwest corner of the property. Looking at the existing zoning and uses of land surrounding the project, to the north is Arapahoe County that has undeveloped land right now, but they're pending review right now of the trails at Overland Ranch, which will add about 1,119 new single-family home lots. To the south, the zoning is RA1. It's within Elbert County. It's more residential agricultural 1 zoning with large lot residential agricultural homes that are within the Skyrim development. To the east, within Elbert County, is zoned RA, residential agriculture, with more large lot residential agriculture and open land. To the west is Douglas County, which has agriculture and large lot residential. But pending right now to the west is the Piney Lakes Trails project. And then to the northwest is a master plan community within the city of Aurora. It's also within Arapahoe County. It's a single-family development. I believe it's called Blackstone Community. This is an image of the actual plat layout of the lots and the property. There are 2 access points that go onto Delbert Road, and 2 access points are going to go to East County Line Road. To the south part of it, the track to H, the larger area, is going to be open space and have a trail system through it. And the far right side, their east side, is track to I, which is going to be a lift station, and that's part of the city of Aurora water and wastewater infrastructure that they'll be providing that to this development. So the history for the application: the pre-application meeting was held on December 13th of 2023. The community meeting was held in January of 2024, and then the preliminary plat application was submitted January 18th of 2024. We started sending referrals out on January the 18th of 2024, and they've had several different iterations of referrals out there, trying to work through all the logistics of the details and getting all the comments back, and I'll go through that in a few minutes. All of the noticing complies with the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulations and the 14-day advance notice and the quarter-mile notices. So all of the notices have been met. The referral, there's a list of different agencies up there and entities that we've sent the referrals to provide feedback on the project. And they, pretty much the majority of them, all their items have been resolved, but I will talk a little bit more about a couple of things that are still being worked on by the applicant. The proposal for the preliminary plat does meet the different goals and policies in the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. The land use goals are met, encouraging a lot of different lot sizes, residential densities, and preserving that more than 50% of the open space. It has a commercial element to it, so again, it's going to provide goods and services and help with that for the residences in the area, and it's in proximity to the major arterial county roads, and as well as it again supports a diverse economic development and commerce and residential development. So the subdivision regulations are also being met in this zoning subdivision regulations. They have a variety of different lot sizes. They also are, providing that there's the range of different sizes. So at the bottom with the 308 total lots, you can see the variety between 50-foot, 60-foot, and 70-foot wide lots that are being provided. The next subdivision regulation relates to the open space conservation community requirements. Again, because of using that option in the subdivision regulations, they need to have at least 50% open space, which they are providing, and it has a variety of different uses they can have, from just open space preserve and those that are more for recreational use, and smaller park interior to the actual lot development. So some of the comments, though, that they're going to be working through right now, and again, these are things that don't need to happen with the preliminary plat. These are things that can be resolved when they finally get to the final plat. But just so that you're aware of some of the discussion going on would be the water and wastewater with the city of Elora, coordinating the details and logistics of that. There's a metro district that will be responsible for the on-site roads, the open space, the infrastructure. And again, subdivision improvement agreement is still being worked on and drafted in regards to details for Delbert Road, East County Line Road, various utility easements, and managing design solutions, being that there's some areas of some fill and how to manage that to minimize any potential flooding in the future for homes that are built within the subdivision. Again, the access areas show you here kind of clearly with the red arrows. That's how people can access the site. And then the trail system was one of the stipulations that was required in the plan unit development zoning. They needed to provide a graphic at the preliminary plat stage, which they did. So it shows the trail coming in from the south and meandering through the open space and continuing throughout the development. So the trail system stipulation of the plan unit development zoning case was met by providing this graphic. So staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners find the following: that the preliminary plat is in general conformance with the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. It meets the requirements of the Elbert County subdivision regulations. It meets all the criteria for the zoning regulations and the Elora PUD, as well as the stipulations, and it will not result in significant impact to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and landowners in the surrounding area. Community Development Services recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve the Elora preliminary plat located at the southeast corner of Elbert Road and East County Line Road with the case number PP-2023-2003 with 3 conditions. When it went to the Planning Commission, they recommended approval to the Board of County Commissioners by a vote of 5-0 for the Elora preliminary plat case PP 2023-2003. There were some different discussions that they had during that hearing. They're itemized in the staff report, and just to talk about the concerns that they had was just they wanted to have an opportunity to have feedback when they do the subdivision improvement agreement. So we agreed to bring that back to them so that they can be able to hear that and be aware of the details once it moves forward. Water dedication and use was discussed during the Planning Commission hearing, and they'll be addressed that, and the applicant, I'm sure, will address that as well. And they were clarifying some landscaping requirements that were questioned during the Planning Commission hearing. So with that, the preliminary plat conditions would be 1, the applicant will be required to remove the public hearing signs within 7 days of the decision by the Board of County Commissioners. 2, the preliminary plat shall not become effective until all fees are paid and conditions of approval are met. And 3, a subdivision improvement agreement must be completed and acceptable to the county attorney in final form prior to the final plat going to public hearing. Elements included in the agreement that must be reviewed by Douglas County, Arapahoe County, and the City of Aurora include the following: the Delbert Road, County Road 1, dedications and improvements; the East County Line Road, County Road 194, dedications and improvements; and the City of Aurora must review and agree with the water, wastewater, infrastructure, and easement locations within the Elbert County and the maintenance responsibility. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you have any questions at this time? Okay, yeah, we're going to hold, Sandra, and let the applicant present, and then we may come back to you. But thank you. So at this point,
Thank you.
Okay, we're switching laptops, so.
Sorry for the little gap again.
No problem.
Knowing that this is going to be seamless from now on. So, good afternoon. My name is Mark Kiefer, Norris Design, planner representing the applicant this afternoon. This is for, as you know, you've heard from Sandra Hoffman, and certainly have had a chance to review in the packet that you've received. This is for a preliminary plat application, which is the second step in the process of the subdivision requirements in your code. So with that, I just want to introduce the team that we have here today, this afternoon, to answer any questions after my presentation. Representing the owner is Dan Sheldon, from Miller United Real Estate. Dan is sitting in the audience today. And then we also have Kevin Lovelace from LJA Engineering. He's the civil engineer that's been responsible for the design of this subdivision and all the other various aspects of it today. And then we also brought our traffic consultants, Mike Rocha from SM Rocha. He's also in the audience. And then, again, myself, Mark Kiefer, the planner for the project. So just wanted to, again, orient you on the project and where it is on the site. I know Sandra had done a fairly thorough job on letting you know that this is in the far northwest corner of Elbert County. To the north, I just wanted to clarify one point that was made earlier. To the north, the trails at Overland that was identified as being within Arapahoe County, while that's the underlying county, that is currently within the City of Aurora. It had been annexed to the city, and they're going through their subdivision process and site planning process as well. But to the north, it is within the City of Aurora's jurisdiction. And then on the northwest corner there, that's the Blackstone subdivision, which is also developed. That's in the City of Aurora. And then to the immediate west is the Piney Lakes Trails project in Douglas County. Again, we're working with them, with Douglas County, in terms of some other intergovernmental cooperation in that area as well, along Delbert Road. So each of those areas are pretty important to this site and also important to Elbert County and your staff. So, and you can also see in terms of the regional location of this, and I'm sure the commissioners have seen this before, but its proximity to existing infrastructure like E470, Monahan Road, which is Delbert Road north of County Line, and all the other roads that have been built to the north, we would anticipate much of the traffic and use associated with this project kind of being directed in that area. So that leads me to who the people we have been talking to during this whole process, we call stakeholders. First and foremost, we have been in contact with our neighbors, our surrounding residents, both within Douglas County and certainly Elbert County. The Elbert County Planning Commission, in our conversations with them and getting a 5-0 approval a couple of weeks ago from them, as well as you, the Elbert County Commissioners, our next phase, as Sandra had mentioned, is the subdivision improvements agreement, which is basically the contractual arrangement between our team and the county, and it'll certainly be in front of you when we bring the final plat back to this body. Arapahoe County and Douglas County and the city of Aurora, they're all part of this conversation, probably both from a traffic perspective, but in the case of Aurora, which I'll talk about in a minute, our intergovernmental agreement that we have currently is with water and sewer services being delivered to the site, and we'll talk about that in one of the subsequent slides here. And certainly the Rattlesnake Fire Protection District, been working with the chief over there. He's also been generous enough to allow us to use his space for our community meetings, so we're very much appreciative of his efforts in supporting us in our outreach program. And then one other thing that makes the site fairly unique is that it's within the Douglas County School District. And that this is one small enclave within Elbert County that is managed by Douglas County Schools. So we're working with them right now to coordinate some activity, some dedication and or fees associated with their standards, but also to accommodate our residents in terms of schools and other activities like that. And then last but not least, the Elora Metropolitan Districts, which again, the county commissioners, you all have had a chance to review in one of our previous meetings with the PUD, and then subsequently the approval of those metro districts. We have 2 districts out there right now that were amended. One from, I should say both of them were approved many years ago, and then they were recently re-amended in January of this year. So getting to the water supply issue, and one of the more important aspects of this intergovernmental agreement, one of many that we're working on right now with our surrounding jurisdictions, is the water and sewer agreement, whereby the city of Aurora is providing both water and sanitation facilities to this project in conjunction with the development they're putting together up north of County Line. This requires no water being developed for the site, so no wells are being drilled on the property. This has been vetted by the Division of Water Resources, and they concur in their staff, I'm sure you see it in your staff report, they concur that this is a viable water supply system and certainly is comparable to what the county currently requests of any developer within Elbert County today. Part of that too is making sure that we are cooperating with them on several fronts. One, it's not just running water and sewer lines into the property, but making sure that we're complying with their standards as well, including a water budget, in terms of what a water demand study that we would be using for this project that is pretty rigorous. And the city of Aurora does have some fairly high standards in terms of water consumptive uses, both in public spaces, but also residential lots. So we're also having to comply with that, which is over and above what I think we would see in other places throughout the metro area. So part of that process too, through the intergovernmental agreement, is that we're submitting our water demand study to Aurora in terms of what we would anticipate in terms of irrigable land, both for parks, open space, as well as residential lots. So that's all part of the intergovernmental agreement process. So with that, I think that really sets up a unique opportunity both for Elbert County as well as the applicant this afternoon in really trying to establish a new innovative means of bringing water and sanitation to this part of the county. One other point I wanted to make too, it's not on this slide, but one of the other aspects of it, which will certainly be addressed in the subdivision improvements agreement, is that there are no basic infrastructure requirements for maintenance or operations for this project as well. So it's all within the confines or the definition of the metro districts that will be taking care of all the built improvements out there. So there aren't any, there's no budget requirements of your public works department to go and snow plow or maintain roads or anything else. It's all self-contained within the metro districts up there. So I just want to go over the entitlement chronology, what we've gone through so far to get to this point. We've got the PUD zoning done last in front of this board in December of last year. Again, thank you for that. And then, as Sandra Hoffman had mentioned, it's zoned for 308 residential dwelling units and about 5 acres, 4.15 acres of commercial land in that area. We're currently in the preliminary plat process. This is the next step in the subdivision ordinance, which I'm sure the commissioners are familiar with that. And this is where most of the technical details are getting worked out in terms of road alignments, road design, sanitary sewer, stormwater, and things like that. So that's really the bulk of what's being reviewed right now. And that's what we're hoping to ask for your consideration today. And then we're starting the final plat process fairly soon. Hopefully, we'll be getting a community meeting set up for that within the next couple weeks. But again, it's part of our outreach program to keep the surrounding neighborhoods informed in this whole process. But I just also wanted to clarify too that this preliminary plat does not modify or change in any way the existing approved PUD that was done in December of last year. The same number of units, the same open space requirements, and everything that was associated with that.
And if I recall, that update to the PUD from last year was built on an existing PUD that was more than a decade old.
Yes, and what we felt, and actually I've got a couple slides of that showing what has changed since that original PUD.
Okay, thank you.
But just to touch again on our community outreach program, you know, we do kind of place a pretty high emphasis on making sure that people are notified of our progress here. We've had a couple community information meetings already, as I mentioned, at Rattlesnake Fire Protection District office, been pretty well attended. We also have a website that we've established from day one that allows for anybody to check on the progress of our project, the status of any application, presentation materials, things like that that we're showing like this afternoon. But it's also been fairly well populated. I mean, people do check that out. So we're hoping that we can keep our neighbors fairly well informed about this whole process. So, and I think through that, the feedback that we had gotten, at least from a lot of our neighbors, has been a lot of appreciation that they're staying in the loop here. If there's a question or comment, they either have an opportunity to talk to the owner himself, Dan Sheldon, or any one of the team members that has contact information on that website. So the preliminary plat, and again, I'll just go over this quickly since Sandra's covered it fairly well. It is part of your subdivision regulations, the conservation community, that requires more than, or at least 50% open space. We're over that with this particular plan right now, including 2 development park sites, actual developments within the project serving not only our area residents, but they're open to the public. You can see those in that. There'll be a better graphic that shows them more succinctly. But then we also increased the buffer to the properties to the east and the south. And getting to your point, Commissioner Richardson, you know, the original plan that was approved back the Sterling Crossing project, that site was literally, it abutted the Sky Rim subdivision to the south. So there were lots right across the fence line from there. What we have now is a very substantial buffer to the south. And it's also a drainage area that serves for a wildlife migration corridor that also had been vetted by the Division of Wildlife Resources too. As well as to the east, we've increased that buffer to our neighbors to the east. So this plan now is a little bit more compact than it was back in the early PUD that was amended. We also shrunk a fairly substantial commercial site that was about 25 acres. In one of our first meetings that we had, community meetings that we had on the zoning process, I think that was met with a lot of relief from our neighbors that they didn't want to see a 25-acre commercial site with the impacting traffic and lights and congestion and everything else associated with that. So they endorsed the idea of shrinking it down to 5 acres on the corner of Delbert and County Line. So just in terms of community support, you can see that the concept plan that you see on your right, your left rather, sorry, I get my dyslexic sometimes. That was the original concept, or that was the concept that was developed with input from our neighbors. And again, opening up that large open space tract to the south and to the east, shrinking the commercial area, and then staying with that theme, we took that all the way through the preliminary plat. So I mean, it's identical to what this one original concept, this illustrated version, which was even before the PUD submittal was made, to the preliminary plat, it's identical to what we had committed to our neighbors. So again, I just want to recap some of the approval criteria that Sandra Hoffman has already covered, but just want to again read them into the record, that we believe the preliminary plat conforms to and is generally consistent with the goals and policies of the Elbert County Comprehensive Plan. I would also add that that includes your housing study. I think that one of the more important policies, recent policies, that this board has adopted and endorsed is your housing study, which again, we feel that this is complying with that as well as the comprehensive plan. And whether or not secondly, the preliminary plat complies with the requirements of both the zoning and subdivision resolution. Again, we believe that we do comply with that, including the conservation subdivision aspect of the 50% open space and preserving that in perpetuity. And then third, whether the preliminary plat is served by sufficient water supply in terms of quality, quantity, and dependability. We think our agreement with the City of Aurora certainly is probably one of the best standards that one could apply in terms of ensuring water supply as well as treatment capacity for future sanitary sewer needs. Then fourth, just what I mentioned before, the preliminary plat is served by viable public sewage disposal systems that comply with local and state regulations. And again, it's part of that Aurora system that's already in place right now. And then finally, the preliminary plat identifies precautions and protections from any geological or geotechnical conditions on the property. And again, with our civil team as well as our geotech consultants on the project have reviewed that, and the basis for our plan is really how this project can get built efficiently and safely for future residents of Elbert County. So with that, we're open to any questions or comments you might have.
I have one more thing. Sure. I want to say. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Dan Sheldon, Miller United Real Estate, 6900 East Bellevue Avenue, Suite 300, Greenwood Village, Colorado, 80111. I did want to point out one other thing in here that I'm hoping you'll allow us to change today. I don't see it on our plan, but I would love to have the preliminary plat back up. The one image that shows the trail connectivity. While you're working on that, let me just give you the narrative. We show a trail connection. We promised you and the Planning Commission and our community a trail connection. We have absolutely every intention of living up to that. Our current trail connection has the word equestrian in one place in our entire 11-page preliminary plat. And I would ask the commissioners to consider removing that word, allowing me to remove that word in our final version that gets recorded. The reason for it, and I know that this may not be the best way to do this since I don't have it up on the screen, but we're talking about the connection right here to Skyrim. And right here on the preliminary plat document, it says equestrian trail connection. That one word, equestrian. It causes me a little bit of grief after giving it some further thought, because I don't know where these, assuming that the people who are riding their horses are not residents of the Elora community, at least not people who have horses on their property, because it's not zoned for horses. So they may board their horses elsewhere, but assume for a moment that the majority, if not all, of the equestrian riders who might come through there would be coming from Sky Rim, which is south of Elora, into the Elora project. Where do they go from there? That's the problem I've got with that word equestrian being on there. And I'd like to ask the commissioners to consider allowing me to remove that. We can spell it out as when one of you might make a motion today to have that one word removed as an additional condition or component to the approval if granted today. And I'm happy to bring up that image if you want to see it. It is literally in one spot throughout the document. I have talked with both Mark Dettenreiter as well as Sandra Hoffman about that topic. They suggested that instead of trying to change what the Planning Commission recommended approval for 2 weeks ago, change it midstream to today and try to give you some memo about it for me just to bring it up with you all today and have us discuss it if it's a problem.
Thanks.
Otherwise, we are available to talk. There we go. Okay. So it's this one spot in the entire document. That word gives me a little bit of heartburn. I just don't know where the horses would go. This will be a soft trail surface running through all that open space, but then it will also then connect up into our project and connect to our sidewalks, and those sidewalks are hard surface. They're concrete. So I'm just not sure equestrian is really the right application for it. I'd ask you to consider removal.
Thank you for that. And actually, while we're talking trails, the connectivity on the southern side at Elbert, do you envision that connecting into future trail system on the Douglas County side, or?
Right now, we have
seems to run off the
no
property.
crossing across Delbert
Okay.
envisioned right now, especially mid-block. If anything, I think, pedestrians or cyclists would be on that trail, get out to our trail running parallel to Delbert. I mean, it wouldn't be a crossing here.
There.
I envision it going up there and then crossing at the light, or at the
Okay.
current stop sign, future light.
Okay, and again, I know this preliminary plat discussion, not final, but with that connection right off Delbert there, it seems like it kind of begs for at least some minimal gravel parking or so. I mean, if we're connecting to the road, it's going to draw people to stop and use that trail. So I just asked you to think through that on the final.
Well, our improvements that we're making to Delbert include a sidewalk, correct? Hang on.
Hello, Commissioners. My name's Kevin Lovelace with LJ Engineering, civil engineer for the site. Just to speak about the Delbert Road improvements, we're providing auxiliary turn lanes, some curb and gutter to manage some drainage. Delbert Road is part of Douglas County's future access plan. Right. For future roadway improvements, those future roadway improvements may include parallel sidewalk, long-term projections from Douglas County. And Douglas County is also in the process of updating their transportation master plan. Right now, we're not proposing a sidewalk within Delbert Road's right-of-way or within right-of-way dedicated to Douglas County within Elbert County's area on the south side of the site. However, we are planning on sidewalk connections internal to our site to where basically at that northern red arrow along Delbert, you'd be able to turn and go east for about 100 feet, go north, internal to the site, just to go on the roadways, and be able to make the loop and go up to the commercial area, And then once at the commercial area, you could kind of either go into the park, you could go north over to Blackstone. Intersection improvements would facilitate those movements via trail.
I appreciate that. And I guess just one last pitch, though. I mean, the southern red arrow right off Delbert, since it connects a trail right to Delbert, and this is open to the public, it potentially would draw people parking on the side of Delbert Road to move on to the trail system. So I just ask in the final plating if you look at what that might mean in terms of people using that trail system safely. If it didn't come right out to Delbert Road, I wouldn't have a concern. If it does, I think there needs to be some accommodation for people accessing the trail system from
I think that's a reasonable request. I would suggest we do one of two things, and I'll leave it to you all to decide which direction you point us. We can either do what you're suggesting, and we'd have to seek approval from Douglas County, which we're in regular conversations with them right now about all the improvements to Delbert that we're going to be doing, to have some kind of dedicated parking off to on the shoulder somewhere, or similar to what we're talking about doing right now with this word equestrian, I could remove that last
little segment,
piece of trail and just have it tie into a loop. So it'll go from here and then head north and never make that final connection.
Okay.
Which would frankly be my preference.
I think that makes more sense safety-wise, and if
okay.
Means some people park in the commercial area.
Yeah.
To use the system, that's fine. You have parking there.
Right.
But
okay. Very good.
That's why I was kind of questioning if you anticipated something on the other side.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I didn't really think that through, but that's a good point. We'll remove that little piece if it's acceptable to the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I guess with that, I'll ask if we have questions for the applicant at this time, or do you want to open for public comment? Or?
The parking question is still there somewhat, unless you expect people to park along the internal roads.
So this trail system that's shown on here is currently thought to be a internal amenity, but open to the public. So that's the way I would think most subdivisions are.
Yeah,
the subdivision I live in is public, but we have trails within it, and usually you don't see people driving to get to my neighborhood just to go walk my neighborhood. So I'm not sure it's a big concern to figure out where to put parking to get into that trail system, but if there were, that commercial space, the corner up there where the 4 acres is, will have plenty of parking when it gets developed. There will be parking most certainly at the park spaces where you see the 2 parks called out. We haven't gotten that far in the design yet, Commissioner, but there will be, bay with 6 or 8 or 10, I don't know, whatever the parking requirements or standard procedures would be for parking there. We'll have parking there. And then our roads, while owned and maintained by the Elora Metro District, they're public roads. We are not going to restrict those roads. If you guys wanted to come out, park there, and jump on this system and go walk it, you could do that. Your residents could do that.
Yeah, so I think at this point we'd open for public comment, and then we'll have final discussion.
Thank you.
Do we have any public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment and turn it back over to my peers here if you have questions.
Yeah, the only question I have is, what do the road agreements look like between Douglas County and Aurora or Arapahoe? Because half of the road, I suppose, is would be the county's, and half of the would be somebody else's.
How much time do you have, Commissioner? I'm going to try to keep this answer relatively short, but I'm happy to dig into as many layers or detail of this as you'd like. Elbert County currently has 2 intergovernmental agreements for Delbert and County Line Road. The one on Delbert is with Douglas County. It talks about the maintenance of that road. In this section, and I don't mean just the Elora frontage, but it's quite a bit further south, it is maintained entirely by Douglas County. Right now, in our discussions with Douglas County, we're speaking to them very regularly, like multiple times per week, as recently as a couple days ago, with their public works group. We are currently expecting to have no changes to that one IGA. We think that that current IGA, and we're reviewing them and walking through them with their public works folks, we currently think that IGA is going to work even with the development of this project. There's nothing that needs to be amended. If there is, it comes to you guys and to the Douglas County BOCC for review and approval. That's the easier one. The County Line Road one's a little bit different in that we are developing our project concurrently with the trails at Overland Ranch to the north of us. We're going to be breaking ground about the same time, at least anticipating. That's a good, oh, you know what, you're not seeing what I'm seeing here. Mark, if it's at all possible, put that back up there. Oh, there we go, look at this. Push of a button, technology. Okay, so right now what's contemplated, and we have been on calls with your staff from Public Works, as well as Arapahoe County staff, as well as the City of Aurora's staff, all the counterparts to the three jurisdictions specific to the County Line Road improvements. What's currently contemplated, there is an IGA from 2006 between Elbert and Arapahoe. And it calls out who's going to maintain a 17-mile stretch between this intersection going east all the way out to or past the Kiowa-Bennett Road. What we're proposing, and all the three jurisdictions have bought off on at a staff level, mind you, is the section of roadway that is in front of the Elora project is going to be built early, like in the next phase, meaning a year from now, in full 4-lane section with some kind of median. We're working on design right now. We don't know exactly what the design looks like, but it's going to be a big section of road. That is what everyone's calling for. That's what the Aurora folks want us to do and build. And we're willing to do that. We're willing to build our half of the road, and Trails at Overland Ranch developer, who we're very cordial with, are going to build their north half of the road. We're going to do it together, in fact, with one contractor, cost sharing between us, make it simple. Anyway, that section of frontage is going to get carved out of your current 2006 IGA. What we're proposing is that there will be an amended and restated IGA between Elbert and Arapahoe that covers everything from the eastern edge of the Elora project all the way to the far eastern edge of the current IGA's boundary. Does that make sense? And then there would be a new, so that we would amend and restate that one, and it would just basically say we're carving out this 3,000 lineal feet and it is not subject to the 2006 IGA any longer. With me so far? Then there would be a new IGA. And the new IGA is going to be between Elbert, Arapahoe, and Aurora. And it's basically going to be for one purpose only, and it's going to be to cover who's doing what with the 3,000 lineal feet of frontage that we just carved out of the first IGA. And it's going to say explicitly that the City of Aurora is going to maintain that in perpetuity from flow line to flow line. Behind the flow line, meaning back behind the curb and gutter, where we may have a tree lawn and a sidewalk on County Line Road, that will be our district's responsibility to maintain, but the roadway itself is going to be a City of Aurora maintenance obligation, and the City of Aurora has explicitly agreed to that. So we're working on all that right now. City of Aurora has agreed to take the first shot at a draft of that new IGA. They're going to be sending it out to your legal, I assume Bart and Arapahoe County's legal, some point in the next few weeks, month, I don't know exactly when, to review. But that's how we're going to handle the multi-jurisdictional that we talked about at concept brief when I sat in front of you a year ago, and we talked about it again in December at zoning. That's how we intend to handle all that. I think it makes sense, and everyone's been on board, and all the jurisdictions have been super to work with, and everyone's really working towards the same goal of solving this maintenance long-term
maintenance obligation.
No, I think that's, sounds like a reasonable direction to go. I'll just reiterate what I did at the PUD. I am appreciative of finding alternative solutions to the water and sewer as opposed to our upper aquifers. So I thank you for that. I think our neighboring residents thank you for that as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out, but I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I think just building on those same, I think the community outreach and your responsiveness to what you hear during that outreach in this project has been tremendous. Truly appreciate that. I mean, for a relatively small project, the complexity, as I was listening through, you got, including your metro district, 7 different governments involved between fire, schools, counties, towns. So pulling that all together, that's yeoman's work, and seemingly making everybody happy throughout it is probably a lightning strike that'll never happen again in the same place. That's a piece of property that we've been looking at for a long time and had concerns about a long time as development occurred up there, that as much as we love our neighbors in Aurora, we really didn't want them operating within the confines of our county. So having this done with use of their water but non-annexation of the town of Aurora into Elbert County is comforting. And again, bringing in the water and sewer is a potential game changer in the county in terms of what we've always done before. Not just putting a hole in the ground and letting somebody else own it, but bringing that water from outside is a good thing. So I don't have any questions at this point. I know preliminary plats there's a lot you can talk about, but the devil's in the details in the final. So when do you anticipate, if approved today, when they're
Our timing?
Yeah.
Our timing right now is if we are able to get approved today, we will pursue final plat. We have our documents all pretty well ready to submit. Presumptuous maybe, but in my business we have to keep moving things forward. So we've been working on those docs, and it's really taking the preliminary stuff and just advancing them further. But we're ready to submit those later this month. And then that goes through I don't know, whatever the process is with your staff, and then through hearings. So probably another couple, 3-4 months, whatever that is. And we look forward to getting that approved and probably seeking a permit and going out and breaking ground this fall. That's our hope.
All righty.
I've got one silly, childish question. What will the postal address for these properties be? Will it be Arapahoe? Will it be
Well, what
Douglas?
city?
Pardon?
What city will it have as
Yes.
the mailing address?
Yes.
I think it's Parker. I think it's Parker. Yeah.
Unless you want to incorporate, but.
So just a quick reminder, if you guys are getting to the point where someone's going to make a motion, if we could remove that little section of trail and the word equestrian out of page 11 of the preliminary plat, we would be appreciative.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you accepted the conditions that had been presented, and would you accept a further condition that the term equestrian be removed in that small segment?
Yes, we do accept the 3 conditions as currently written, as well as those 2 new conditions being addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I'd accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Elora preliminary plat case number PP-2023-2003 with the conditions as stipulated, including the last 2 conditions that were just agreed upon verbally.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve this preliminary plat with conditions that have been accepted, both those that came from the Planning Commission and the additional 2 that on the trail network. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. I would accept a motion to close public hearing on this item.
Mr. Chair, I move we close public hearing on Laura preliminary plat, case number PP-2023-2003.
Second.
All righty, we have a motion and a second to close public hearing. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, we have closed. I know that means we got a slight change to the resolution to make, but I would just ask that between staff and yourself, you're happy with the language on the conditions related to the trail. And then,
Mark, I would only ask if we could see that language before you get the resolution ready to record. Is the resolution record?
yeah.
That'd be great.
Yes, we can coordinate and get that done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate your time.
All righty, thanks. I think that was the only issues or the only hearings we had scheduled. I know there was some discussion earlier about continuances, how many and how long. Kind of like to pick that up again. It's, I think, probably thank you guys. There's been a few poster childs for lengthy continuances. I think most recently the one that comes to mind was Miller Ranch, where we probably went through half a dozen continuances over a year plus period. And I know we're seeing it again with the application I recused myself from, and I do think it's really doesn't do the citizens good service to have a sign up that has a hearing dates that are well past. I think it just adds to some of the confusion, and I know there's some added expense to applicants, but it's probably some added incentive to not let things linger, that we establish some number of continuances that's appropriate before reposting and renoticing, and the same with a full-time period. I mean, what I was thinking was no more than 2 continuances before you renotice a hearing, and then probably no more than 3 months continuation before, because then we just have really old signs getting muddy and dirty, and people lose track. And I also hate to have people continuing to come out to meetings that are continued, and it adds to frustration to those that have something to say, and so, whatever you guys.
Yeah, what kind of, we've been talking about this because some of these continuances seem to go on forevermore, and circumstances around change and all sorts of things. So, like this August 14th extension, I found that odd. It was just so long, and it's after a previous continuance. There has to be a limit to 2 or 3 continuances in total, and I like what Chris said, in time. It's because, and I can use a lot of different examples of this. One would be the simple one. Sometimes there's a change in personnel, so between this guy and whoever does it the next time, there could be a different analytical viewpoint. So there has to be a limit.
Yeah, Mark Denreader, Director of Community and Economic Development. Agreed, great points, Mr. Commissioners, appreciate it. Staff will take a look at this and consult internally, obviously, as appropriate and applicable. And as we do our regulation update rounds, we can get this in there.
And I would just encourage too, even before we can get to the regulation change, that any new applicants that come in, you kind of give them a heads up that this is kind of coming and this is what we're looking at doing. So make sure we have complete packets coming.
Fair enough. Thank you.
I would just ask, obviously, if it's a regulatory change, it'll go through the Planning Commission, but if you could just socialize the idea with Planning Commission, if we can coalesce around something. I'd talked to Bart earlier. He said this was something that, well, it should be integrated into regulation. There's probably no problem with establishing it as policy prior to, as long as we're transparent with the applicants from the beginnings. I would ask I know we've got some changes coming, but if it makes sense to just establish it as a practice or policy prior to adopting in regulation, and it makes sense with the planning commission, that, yeah, kind of come back to us and see if what we pitched here makes sense, and we'll just go forward with it. Because I do think it's, I mean, not only for the public, but I think it's fair to the applicant as well. Because we can always reset an application by denial and letting them reapply fully, but that puts an awful lot of, it's probably a huge bat to swing when we can address it in a little easier fashion. So thanks.
It all makes good sense. Thank you.
And you may have different commissioners, too.
Yeah, this is true. This is a reality of term limits, yes.
All righty. So with that, I don't think we have any other business before us unless you have anything. I'm not seeing any.
No, that is all.
Okay,
Thank
that's
you.
the right answer. Thank you. I will accept a motion to adjourn for the day.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.